This message brought to you by Chicanos Por La Causa.
Bienvenidos and welcome back to the launching of LA Barrio Stories and Los Angeles Boulevard News. This is Dr. Jose Leyba Ta Plática, where we try to bring you stories from our community told through our lens. Because if we don't tell our stories, someone else will, especially about our culture, our history, our language, and the struggle that Chicanos have faced in being part of this country. Today, we're here at Chicanos Por La Causa at their brand new offices with the person who is leading the effort in California, Tomas Duran. Welcome, Tomas. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good, good. So tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and then we'll get into the history of CPLC and how you're here to help empower communities.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in San Jose. Before tech, there were still orchards and canning factories when I was growing up. Came to school in Los Angeles in 1992 to go to university. And then I met my wife and she foiled all my plans. I ended up staying in LA since then.
So that does happen, right?
Yeah, it does happen, yeah.
Okay. So now you have now officially opened the offices here. Yeah. And you are now partnering with Amanecer to do, what is your focus going to be?
Yeah, so Chicanos Por La Causa made the decision to expand into California five years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. I came on 2.5 years ago to lead the effort. And really the idea is, how do we replicate some of those really good programs that are happening in the other states that we serve? How do we fill gaps where we're noticing that there's a lack of service? There's still parts of California where the community isn't being served.
Right.
Places like the Imperial Valley, where you have high levels of poverty, you have generational poverty, high levels of unemployment. And then also, we want to preserve the legacy of some of these strong organizations that have been around for decades, but that may have hit a point in time when they're ready for a transition and in danger of closing.
Okay. Well, that's great, because I have to tell our viewers that don't know what Chicanos Por La Causa does. They are a nonprofit. I was blessed to have worked there with my partner in crime, Daniel Ortega, as young Mecha students in a small little office. And now it's grown into this $500 million nonprofit that is serving 6 states right now and trying to help our raza, our community, and other communities that are impoverished to raise them up and create many opportunities for them, including affordable housing, senior housing, education, and also economic development. So what is the vision of CPLC now here in LA?
I was a machista when I came down here. I met a lot of cats from Arizona, or for people who had family in Arizona, and they talked about CPLC or Chicanos Por La Causa, because even then it was already, a big organization creating a lot of impact. So I've been a big fan of the organization for some time. And so when the opportunity came up to work with them, I jumped at it. But so you asked about, the things that we're thinking, or the kind of the approach. I'd like to take a step back, because one of the things that's important to know about CPLC is it grew up in a place that had a lot of opposition and adversity. A lot of people didn't like the work that it was doing. A lot of people actively organizing to stop it, whether they were elected officials, whether there was people in the community, whatever it was. And so the organization had to create infrastructure and create a track record of doing things that was unapproachable, that people couldn't find fault with. So when someone did come after your federal funding, that you were very well organized, your audits were tight, that your reporting was really good, that you were doing things at a really high level. So much so that they received recognition for the programs that they've done. President Obama actually visited after the Neighborhood Stabilization Program to commend the work that they were doing. And so when you come out of that space where essentially you were doing things at a really high professional level, but you're also very strong because there's so much resistance against you, you develop a whole different platform of programs to address community needs that are really wide and varied. So like you said, affordable housing, to domestic violence counseling, to schools, to substance abuse counseling, mental health counseling. We have programs to do job training and actually manage the workforce centers in lots of different parts of Arizona. There's just a huge amount of services. And when you look back and you think about it, it's that whatever a community needs to thrive, CPLC has developed that over the last 5 decades.
Right. Let me give you an example. I had the opportunity to do some work in Texas with CPLC, and we were visiting the migrant shelter on the border. This is when we had so many migrants and no one wanted or knew how to address them. And CPLC came in, the leadership, the president, the vice presidents, they came in, they all worked to develop a migrant center that was humanistic. It took care of all the needs of these young people. And I know when I was there visiting, you could see the trauma that many of these young people had come across, that the mental trauma, the social trauma, the physical trauma. And so Chicanos Por La Causa did something very special in developing El Centro Mariposa at that time to serve the needs of that particular community down in McAllen, Texas. And I think that's something very crucial for our viewers to understand about CPLC. It's here to work with you to empower communities to raise themselves up. And so I think maybe you might want to start off talking about what you are doing right now and what might be some other future plans.
So I think for us, the idea is how do we continue that momentum, right? We're now serving 6 states. In California, we're just standing up programs here. And part of it is staying with stuff that we know works, but also, like I said, addressing those gaps. One of the things that we're really concerned about is like the legacy organizations.
Right.
So we're actually sitting in the offices today of Amanecer Community Counseling Service. This organization was started almost 50 years ago. It's full of wonderful people doing really, really impactful work here in Pico Union, down in South Los Angeles, all over the core of Los Angeles. They provide trauma recovery for victims of crime. They provide substance abuse counseling. They provide counseling for children and for adults. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, because of changing billing systems, because of all these other things, they got into a situation where they couldn't survive without support. And CPLC was able to step in and not only support them, but invited them to join our familia so that we could continue to help them grow and operate on a level that stayed true to their mission, but also added their expertise to our own. And so Amanecer is still its own nonprofit. The name is still here. Its legacy will continue, but now it's associated, it's affiliated with CPLC, so that means that it has more resources, it has will have greater reach, and there's more financial stability.
So let's talk a little bit about California and how CPLC is here to, as we stated like 3 times, to empower communities. But how are you going to do that? By embracing them and being part of their familias, right?
When I started in this role, one of the things I did was present a business plan to the board of directors. And because I've been working in California for the last 3 decades, doing economic development, community development, financing projects in different parts of the state, one of the things I knew is that there's already very, very mature nonprofit network here. There's already very established communities. There's communities where you have to enter with a great deal of respect. You need to know, who the leaders are and what the issues are, because otherwise you end up creating challenges for moving things forward. And so when we went, I talked to the board and it says, look, we're going to spend a little bit of time traveling the state, listening, talking to people, trying to figure out what the issues are, where we can use our infrastructure and our resources to the greatest benefit.
Right, and I'm glad that you talked about your history here working in California. I served as the president of Mission College, and I know that we had a couple of nonprofits that were very instrumental in helping students in need, especially those students that didn't have transportation, needed babysitting, they needed help with food insecurity, or housing. And so it's a really important role to uplift our community. So I think we really have to celebrate that fact. Even though Chicanos Por La Causa is housed in Phoenix, Arizona, it is branching out in the Southwest to help empower these communities. And I want our viewers to understand that. So you hear that word empowerment, which is really important. We need to do that in many of our institutions, just like in education, okay? So as we begin to kind of close up our interview, what might you think individuals and our viewers and our audience need to know about CPLC?
I think for our efforts in California is that we're really looking to amplify good work. So if we can use our resources, our infrastructure, our connections to help a local organization grow or be more impactful, then we absolutely. Or if there's communities that have a need that's not being filled, if there's opportunities that people want to, want us to explore. We're open to all of those things. I think we're also very, focused on preserving the legacy of important organizations like Amana said. We're working with a few others right now doing that very thing.
Okay, so as we close, we want to close with a very light moment. Okay, we had a very serious discussion, and as those of you who know CPLC may know that we have our first Latina as CEO and president. And we're very happy because she is ultimately the most qualified person to take that position. But we might consider, changing the name, since now we have a Chicana in charge, to Chicanos Por La Causa, right? I think that might be the new direction. We're going to learn a lot of new things. The organization will continue to grow and continue its mission to help families and to help bring up communities. I know that there's a senior community that I have visited, and the seniors there are taken such good care of. It is like a familia. It's not like some of the other senior centers that you might see. Likewise, their high school programs that they have that are really demonstrating how kids can get involved and get back. So I think that legacy will continue here, and I want to thank Tomas Duran for being here with us. Any parting words, Tomas?
No, thank you. We're excited about the collaboration with you on, with LA Vario Stories and Arizona Vario Stories. We hope to continue that here locally, and we look forward to working with you all.
Good. So we want to thank the new CEO and president, Alicia Nunez, and their board, and all the administration and the thousands of people that work there every day, because now they're bringing their good work here. So in closing, this is Dr. Jose Leyba with LA Barrio Stories and Los Angeles Boulevard News. Stay tuned, because we're going to do some really exciting things here. Latino Barrio Stories here, LA Barrio Stories here will now have an office here with CPLC. So we're going to be back in this community, and we're going to be looking to tell stories from your perspective, because this is a rich history of Chicanismo here in LA. There's so much history that we can talk about. So many great leaders have come out of Los Angeles, and we're here to support you. So muchas gracias. This is Dr. Jose Leyba. Hasta la próxima vez. Muchas gracias.